Pleasure in opening the ordinary council meeting of the 27th of August 2024 at 6:30 p.m. and welcome all those in attendance. I wish to inform you that the meeting is now being live streamed and recorded. The video will appear on the council website and YouTube channel. The public gallery will not be recorded unless accidentally, and only participant in the meeting, namely a person asking questions at public question time, will be live streamed and recorded. If you wish to ask a question at public question time, your voice and image will be recorded and live streamed. If you do not consent to your voice and image being recorded and live streamed to the public, then you may need to leave the meeting. By staying in this meeting, you consent to your voice and image being live streamed and recorded. No other electronic, visual, or audio recording device or instrument can be used to record the proceedings of this meeting without prior written permission from council, as outlined in the City of Belmont Standing Orders 2017, Section 8.17. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people as the traditional owners of this land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I further acknowledge their cultural heritage, beliefs, connection and relationship with this land, which continues today. Councillor Marks, will you please read aloud the affirmation of civic duty and responsibility on behalf of councillors and officers present?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make this affirmation in good faith and declare that I will duly, faithfully, honestly and with integrity fulfil the duties of my office for all the people in the City of Belmont according to the best of my judgment and ability. I will observe the City's Code of Conduct and standing orders to ensure efficient, effective and orderly decision making within this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marks. I have an apology from Councillor Powell. We have a leave of absence. I note that Councillor VJ is currently on leave of absence. Declarations of interest. Will the Coordinator of Governance please advise of those declarations made to date? Financial interests.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we have two declarations of financial interest this evening. The first from Councillor Sakula for item 12.1, development application for lot 100 Daly Street, Cloverdale, as he is the chairman of the Notre Dame Parish Council, chairman of the Notre Dame Parish Finance Committee and chairman of the Notre Dame Parish Building Committee. He has registered a declaration of financial interest indirect for noting the despite noting the exemption under section 5.631F of the Local Government Act, which applies, he wishes to declare that interest notwithstanding the effect of that section of the Act, and he recuses himself from any discussion or decision making at Council this evening relating to that matter. Mr. John Christie has declared a direct financial interest in the staff matter for the CEO annual performance, as the item relates directly to the performance and remuneration of the Chief Executive Officer. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any disclosure of interest affecting impartiality?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we have a number of disclosures this evening. Firstly, Councillor Sakula also declares an impartiality interest in item 12.1 as he is the chairman and he recuses himself still of any discussion. Mayor Rossi, you've also declared an interest in item 12.1 as you're a Roman Catholic and sometimes attend services at that facility. Councillor Kordzicki, item 12.2, draft Golden Gateway Local Structure Plan. As he is elected member, I represent the City of Belmont as trustee for the Belmont Trust, and the Belmont Trust land neighbours the draft Golden Gateway Local Structure Plan precinct. Also, Councillor Kordzicki for item 12.4, the Internal Audit Report, as he is the presiding member of the Standing Committee Audit and Risk. Also, Councillor Kordzicki for item 14.2 for the Chief Executive Officer's staff performance appraisal, obviously as he is known to the Chief Executive Officer. I'd also like to add Councillor Sakula for item 12.4, the Internal Audit Report, as he is the Deputy Presiding Member of the Standing Committee Audit and Risk. In addition, Councillor Sakula for item 12.6, the accounts for payment in July 2024, as he is a recipient of the councillor payments within that report. Councillor Sekula for the Staff Matter Chief Executive Officer, as he is a member of the Executive Committee. Councillor Jenny Davis for the Staff Matter CEO Annual Performance Appraisal, again is also a member of the Executive Committee. Councillor Ryan for item 12.1 has declared an impartiality interest. And Councillor Sessions has declared an interest in item 14.2 for the CEO appraisal, as she is the Deputy Presiding Member of the Executive Committee and involved in the appraisal process and KPI setting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We now move to announcements. I have one announcement. At the City's annual Pioneers Luncheon, Councillor Phil Marks was honoured as the City of Belmont's newest honorary freeman. Congratulations to Phil. Disclaimer 636. Wish to draw attention to the disclaimer notice contained with the agenda document and advise members of the public that any decisions made at the meeting tonight can be revoked pursuant to the Local Government Act of 1995. Therefore, members of the public should not rely on any decisions until formal notification in writing from the City has been received. Declarations by members who have not given due consideration to all matters contained in the business paper presently before the meeting. Are there any declarations to be made by councillors? There are none. Public question time. Responses to questions taken on notice from the ordinary council meeting of the 23rd of July are noted in the agenda from Ms Hollands on behalf of the Belmont Resident Ratepayer Action Group, Ms Hollands herself, Mr Whiting, Mr Cardoso on behalf of the Belmont East Ward Connect, Ms Ransom and Mr Harris. Questions by members of the public. It's now 6:37 and I open public question time and draw attention to the public gallery to the rules of public question time as written in the question time form. In accordance with section 6.3 and 6.4 of Standing Orders Local Law 2017, members of the public are reminded they must extend due courtesy and respect to both councillors and employees. Please do not use inappropriate, objectable or untruthful expressions or expressions that reflect adversely on the character or actions of councillors or employees. If any expression is deemed inappropriate, you'll be directed to withdraw the expression and apologise. If you do not comply, I will have to end your question. Lastly, I remind and caution everyone present at this meeting to refrain from making defamatory statements, especially considering that these proceedings are now live streamed. Section 6.2 of City's Standing Orders, Local Law 2017, states that members of the public can ask up to 2 questions, and you have no more than 2 minutes per question to allow time for everyone to ask their questions. However, as presiding member, I will allow up to 4 questions per person. Presently, I have Mr Harris has submitted his questions, and I have 5 people who are going to ask questions. We have Liz Hollands on behalf of Bragg, Adriana Cepeda, Martin Cardoso on behalf of Belmont East Ward Connect. Are there anybody else? Is there anybody else? Janet G and Luigi Rosalind. And we'll move straight to Mr Harris. You've submitted your questions. The CEO will read out your answers, the answers for you.
Good evening, Mayor Rossi, councillors, officers and public gallery. I'm Jared Harris of Cloverdale. Multiple projects in the Sustainable Transport Plan have gone nowhere since being subject to what's been called a preliminary investigation. Those assessments apparently trumped the combination of expert opinion, public consultation and executive leadership team endorsement that backed the original plan. What was the process of those investigations, including who was responsible, who was consulted, and who was informed of the results?
Mr CEO.
Thank you, Worship. There has been correspondence and discussion over the last number of weeks between Mr Harris and City officers, where these queries have already been addressed. Nevertheless, several projects under the Sustainable Transport Plan have been completed or progressed, including the PTA bus embayment extension on Belmont Forum side of Wright Street, the underpass at the Great Eastern Highway / Surrey Road intersection, the pedestrian crosswalk on Kooyong Road near Newey Street, the upgrade of principal shared paths at various locations, including Garvey Park, the Esplanade, Tomato Lake, Beachy Park, and Centenary Park. The pedestrian cycle crosswalks on Wright Street and Fulham Street are to be implemented this financial year, subject to Western Power lighting upgrades. And black spot safety improvement projects to be constructed this financial year on approach to Francisco and Kooyong Road intersection. The remaining projects identified in the current plan have not been abandoned and will be reviewed in conjunction with development of the new Sustainable Transport Plan. The community engagement process to inform the new Sustainable Transport Plan will commence in early October, and Mr Harris's feedback is welcomed. Thank you, Your Worship.
Next question.
That didn't answer the question of who was involved in the investigations.
CEO?
Thank you, Worship. I'll take that part on notice, unless the Director can respond.
Through you, Mayor Rossi, in relation to this question, Mr Harris has been in discussions with officers and on email and in person in relation to projects under the Sustainable Transport Plan. And I mean, the bulk of the question we have in front of us is speculation that isn't correct, and the answer that the CEO has given is the same answer that has been given to Mr Harris previously.
Thank you. Your second question, Mr Harris?
Okay. Since 2016, our integrated movement strategy, Belmont on the Move, has said that two of our highest transport priorities are the implementation of a parking strategy and advocating for a default 40k speed limit on local roads. Neither of these happened, and I can't find what the City or Council have done to advance them. What was the most recent substantial progress made for each of these two stated priorities?
Mr CEO?
Thank you, Worship. The Minister of Transport advocated for a holistic default 40km/h speed limit across Perth metropolitan area. However, this was rejected by Main Roads WA and the police due to compliance-related issues. The City's endorsed Activity Centre planning strategy provides some guidance on these matters at a centre level. This includes advocating for reduced speed limits in certain circumstances and subject to Main Roads WA approval. The strategy also references recommended approaches to parking in certain centres. Belmont on the Move will be reviewed and consolidated with new Sustainable Transport Plan. Thank you, Your Worship.
Mr Harris?
Can I ask a further question?
Go to the end of the line because
That's
I've got other
fine.
people waiting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to ask a question at the end? Okay, thank you. Liz Hollins. If you could ask your personal questions first, thank you.
Oh. Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Firstly, I don't give consent to being on camera, and any perceived consent is under duress. Okay. On tonight's agenda, we have a confidential matter, yet again being a code of conduct matter. So my question, since the Minister changed the legislation so that code of conduct matters come to Council, can I have a breakdown of how many have come to Council, how much this has cost in terms of any independent reports required, and how many complaints have been regulation breaches in that time and instead have gone to the standards panel?
Mr CEO?
Thank you, Worship. I'll need to take that on notice.
Thank you. According to questions previously asked, and hold on, that's the wrong one. No, sorry, I'll have to go to the other one. With respect to the CEO's contract on tonight's agenda again, can we have a breakdown of, obviously the CEO is allowed to have time off for holidays, sick days, all of that sort of thing. When we have acting CEOs, and that seems to happen a little bit, how does that affect how much extra they might get paid in the event, and does that come into effect when reviewing the contract.
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I'll take the bulk of that on notice, but just record that my annual leave is specified within my contract of employment. Yep. All leave is approved by the Mayor and taken in accordance with the provisions of my contract. Thank you, Your Worship.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
And the final one, I came to the agenda briefing last week and we talked about the Golden Gateways on the agenda. I think it was a developer, I think he said he was, and he came in and indicated why we needed 20 stories, and it appeared and he indicated that he'd been speaking to the city and he thanked the city for their efforts in putting something that was more beneficial to them in terms of building more things. So my question is the city putting the wishes of developers before perhaps the wishes of residents, given that they originally said it was wanted 9 stories and 6 stories?
Director of Development and Communities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I ask Ms. Hollins to please repeat that question?
Pardon?
Please, just repeat the question. Thank you.
Yep. I was at the agenda briefing last week and I think he said he was a developer. He came in, he gave a deputation or a submission. He went on about the costs of building buildings and the climate we're in, and thanked the city for, you know, considering them when they, presumably when he put that report together. So my question is, given that in the past the residents of particularly Ascot Waters were looking at 9 stories and 6 stories, and it's gone up to somewhere now near 20 stories with the bonuses, are the residents being put secondary to the wishes of a developer?
Be able to answer that, Mr. Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The draft local structure plan document and the agenda report associated with that document explains the rationale for height. It's not to do necessarily with the wishes of a developer. It does take into consideration the aspirations of the community, the needs for housing, the state planning strategies and the state planning framework. The document is before council for the purposes of advertising, or to consider for the purposes of advertising tonight, and that will be the opportunity to take on board any feedback that the wider community may have on the document.
And can I just confirm that we have reached our standards that we have to put in by the state government? Because I've asked that before, and I'm pretty sure that you told me that we've reached our quota.
Director of Development Communities, I believe that's not true. We haven't reached it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the state government sets housing infill targets. The city is on track with the interim targets. There are continuing targets into the future to meet the housing numbers in future years.
I think you have some more Bragg questions?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Last month, I asked about the amount of things that are now referred to as confidential items that have confidential attachments. I read out what the Act stated in respect of this and asked which part of the confidentiality in the Act referred to with respect to, on that night, to item 12.1, short stay accommodation. I wanted to know what would be secret in the attachment when it could potentially affect many residents, and I don't believe I got a straight answer. So my question, on tonight's agenda we have the Golden Gateway, and it was mentioned at the agenda briefing there was a confidential attachment. With respect to both this and the short-term accommodation of last month, what could be requiring to be confidential when this again affects lots of residents? What section of the Act, other than section 5.23, what specifically, A, B, C, D, E of 5.23 are you using to get this confidential stuff through?
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Worship. I'll take that on notice.
Thank you. Last month I asked why consultation was done on Stanton Road and who decided that it was, when it wasn't part of the motion that councillors voted on. The response was that consultation had already been commissioned prior to the meeting. I do realise that the traffic consultant had been commissioned at that time, but I thought that the staff run the actual consultation. Previously, residents of Lyle Street complained about the fact that in February 23, the motion passed regarding Stanton Road where only part of it was going to be done, and then it was decided that all of it was going to be done after talking to Main Roads. So my question, if it was not staff that did the public consultation this time around on the Redcliffe traffic, who was it and how much did that component cost given the recent motion didn't specifically say consultation?
Mr CEO?
Thank you, Worship. I'll need to take that on notice to confirm the numbers unless the director can answer that.
Through you, Mayor Rossi, it was staff members who carried out the engagement process for the Redcliffe area traffic study.
Okay, on that basis, how was it they'd been engaged to do it when it wasn't part of the motion?
Go ahead, Director of Infrastructure Service.
Through you, Mayor Rossi. The motion didn't specifically have instructions in relation to the Redcliffe area traffic study. There were 3 resolutions. The first resolution was to pause implementation of the Elkers works on Stanton Road. The second resolution was in relation to continue the lighting upgrade on Stanton Road. And the third resolution was to inform the residents of the first 2 resolutions and also to inform them of the upcoming Redcliffe area traffic study, which is a separate matter from those 3 resolutions. So the Redcliffe area traffic study is a large traffic study that requires a community consultation given the scale and the complexity and the nature of it, and also wider stakeholder engagement given the proximity to the airport and the key stakeholders in the airport.
Next question, please.
Some residents have complained to me about some of the books that's in our library and their availability to young children. One's on transgender, same-sex parenthood, LGBTIQ, all freely available to kids under 11. The general consensus from the people that have called me is that they should not be available freely to young kids, only if there is parental supervision, and it should be, and they should be locked away. So my question, the library has a list of books that fits this description. So can I have a breakdown from the city as to how many you've how long you've been stacking these books, who decides what books are supplied, and how often the books are taken out on loan since they've been on the shelves? And can the breakdown of the loan include specific books? Because I think there's only probably a dozen books that I know of.
If the CEO can answer that right now, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. I'll answer part of that, but I believe I have already responded to this matter at a previous council meeting where I made a statement. I will reiterate, though, that the Ruth Faulkner Library has a process where people can request for content to be reconsidered. So those members of the public that are contacting you, you should probably direct them to the manager of our library, who will quite clearly point them out the appropriate form to fill in to request that any content be reconsidered. And I will add that Ruth Faulkner Library is a registered public library under the Library Board of WA 1951, and we are guided by the State Library's collection principle, which is the State Library's collection reflect many views and perspectives. The library does not seek to promote or discourage particular viewpoints and does not censor material, although the library abides by federal and state government decisions on banned and restricted materials. Thank you, Your Worship.
Am I able to get a breakdown of how many times they're booked out?
Thank you, Worship. I'll take that on notice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move to Adriana. Please come forward.
Good evening. I'm Adriana Cepeda, 1 Northerly Avenue, Ascot. My questions are about the Belmont Trust land budget. And there are 2 items there. One is a project coordinator. And the question is, has that role been advertised?
Director of Corporate Governance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, the role has not yet been advertised. It is anticipated it will be advertised in the next 4 months.
Next question. I think you missed one at the start.
Yes, and the next question is about the legal costs and allocated. So since The activities during this financial year are planning activities. What are the legal costs anticipated when you are doing this planning? Because it represents 14% of the budget, 14% of the total budget allocated this financial year.
Director of Corporate and Governance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, the amounts of budget in case there are legal services required in association with any planning matters that may arise. If the funds are not used, they'll be returned to the relevant reserve.
All right.
And you've got a third question there?
Yes, the third question is about the block of land located opposite to the Craig Care facility, which is basically Grandstand and Water Crescent. I use your tool that is on the City of Belmont website to determine what is the zoning for that block of land. But when I use the tool, it doesn't say, no, there is empty, that box. There is no zoning. So can somebody please tell me what's the zoning? Because I know that it was rezoned. So, what is it?
Director of Development and Communities, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe Ms. Zapita would be referring to number 54 Grandstand Road. The zoning under the scheme is Special Development Precinct, Escort Waters. I'm also aware of the amendment Ms. Zapita is referring to. That was the scheme amendment to clarify that the zone was indeed Special Development Precinct. Under a previous version of the scheme map, it was reflected as mixed-use zone, although the scheme map, although the zoning for that precinct was Special Development Precinct. There's another layer of the planning framework, which is the local planning policy for the Special Development Precinct, local planning policy number 6, Escort Waters, and the zoning shown on that document is residential density of R100, and it's also demarcated as a landmark location.
So it's currently then R100, is that correct?
Director, are you able to answer that? Director of Development Communities.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the zoning is Special Development Precinct, in addition to any other provisions that should be considered under the policy. The detailed area plan in the policy shows it as R100.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We move on to Martin Cardoso for your own questions first.
Good evening, Mayor, Councillors, City Officers and fellow residents. Martin Cardoso from Lyle Street, Redcliffe. My first question, it is well established that the City lacks a traffic management investigation policy, which in other LGAs ensures an orderly, objective and transparent process for spending ratepayer money on traffic management. Ratepayer funds are limited and changes in road conditions significantly impact the community. In Belmont, road infrastructure changes, and I don't mean resurfacing, are handled operationally and presented to Council as budget line items, effectively allocating ratepayer money without detailed scrutiny. For example, the Mooring Street project allocated $350,000 of ratepayer funds without being brought to Council as an agenda item. Similarly, the Stanton Road project included an allocation of ratepayer money in addition to LCIR's funding without formal Council review, despite being a likely $500,000 project. Recently, the City constructed a mini roundabout as a $180,000 budget line item, also without Council consideration as an agenda item. The community contends that Council has an obligation...
Question, please. You need to get to a question.
I'm getting there. I think there's a 2-minute. Have I exceeded the 2 minutes, sir?
The question.
The community contends that Council has an obligation to change this approach, which allows road projects to proceed solely based on budget lines This concern was echoed by 570 Belmont electors who requested change. Without community engagement and without council due diligence, mistakes are made, money is wasted, and confidence in the council is eroded. Section 2.7, subsection 2, A and B of the Local Government Act states that the role of council is to A, oversee the allocation of local government's finances and resources, and B, determine the local government's policies. Approving how, what and why ratepayer money is spent is central to council's role. By passing traffic management projects through budget lines, how is council prudently allocating resources? And what can be done to ensure all ratepayer spending on traffic management and calming measures is brought before council as an agenda item?
Director of Infrastructure Services.
Through you, Mayor Rossi, we will take that on notice.
CEO will also answer.
Thank you, Worship. Just to clarify a couple of points that you've raised, Mr Cardozo. I've been at a number of council meetings where you make reference to 570 electors on a petition. I want to clarify that that was the number of signatories on the petition. Only 337 were actually official electors of the city. So I just want to clarify that point. Your reference that capital works is hidden within our budget process is not quite correct. We have a number of budget meetings with councillors at information forums where the capital programme and the draft capital programme is presented. There's an opportunity for councillors to review all of the capital works projects that are coming forward, and that is done prior to the budget being addressed. But the other parts of that question, I'm happy for the Director to take on notice.
Thank you, Mr CEO. In April, the City sent a letter addressed to the resident Fulham Street and surrounding streets regarding the installation of a mini roundabout at Fulham and Fisher Streets. The letter stated, as part of the 2023-2024 Works Program, funding has been allocated to install a mini roundabout at the intersection of Fulham and Fisher Street. The March budget review confirmed a funding allocation of $180,000 for this project. This allocation effectively prioritised ratepayer resources and should have been presented to council as an agenda item. Additionally, and sadly, it comes as no surprise that there was no community engagement before the allocation of these funds, and only minimal consultation occurred in the weeks leading up to construction. Can the city provide the business case supporting this project, particularly and addressing the following, and I'll send these questions to the city in the morning to assist. Who signs off on a project like this? Was the work done in-house or by contractors? And if done by contractors, how were tenders procured? Who initiated the need for the traffic calming device? Was a warrant score assessment conducted? Was the intersection, did the intersection have a crash ranking? What engineering analysis was performed? What community engagement occurred prior to the allocation? Did the project go over budget? And if so, who approved the additional spending? What follow-up process is in place to assess the project's success?
They'll need to be taken on notice, obviously.
That's fine. Thank you. Question 3. Traffic management and calming expenditures have not traditionally been approved through a council agenda item process. Without a traffic management policy such as required such spending to be presented to council, the city typically uses the budget line method for all roadworks. Given this finance-based approval process, what happens if the budgeted cost is exceeded? Does it return to council for additional approval, or is the extra expenditure signed off by the director? Additionally, does the director have an authority to approve any budget variation, or are there set parameters?
Mr CEO?
Thank you. I'll take that on notice, but will add that any additional funds that are required are generally addressed and presented to council at budget reviews, such as the October budget review or the March budget review, where additional funds are required. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Last question on behalf of myself. I'd just like to provide some feedback in good faith, acknowledging that I'm relatively new and inexperienced in council matters. My feedback concerns 3 items that are important to me as a resident and ratepayer. Firstly, there's no need to film members of the public during public question time. It discourages community engagement, particularly for those residents with limited English proficiency. It also raises personal safety concerns. Our neighbouring LGAs do not engage in this practice. If the policy on cameras were like a volume dial, the city has set it to its maximum, which is unnecessary. It's almost mean. Second, The agenda briefing forum should be fully broadcast.
I'm sorry, you need to ask questions. So could you turn the next bit into a question? We really need a question because other people are waiting. Sorry, you need to ask questions.
Okay, so I'm supporting fully broadcasting the agenda briefing forum, and I'm asking that the city include a 1-minute statement within the OCM format, and I'm asking for the councillors, for the sake of transparency, enhancing community engagement and fostering a better Belmont, will you consider all or some of these suggestions?
Mr. CEO, thank you.
Thank you, Worship. The council did consider all of those aspects previously in the development of the policy, and that's why we're live streaming this council meeting in accordance with the changes to the Local Government Act. There will be standard meeting procedures that will be coming out of the state government soon, which I believe will have a statement time in it at some point. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you,
Questions
Mr.
on
CEO.
behalf of Belmont East Ward Connect.
Thank you. The opening of Central Avenue at Perth Airport near Redcliffe train station was not part of the airport master plan. It was never intended for T3, T4 traffic to favour Central Avenue over the main Dunreath interchange to access Great Eastern Highway. Why would drivers choose a route that takes them in an opposite direction, involves 2 additional traffic lights and adds up to 3 minutes extra to reach Great Eastern? This preference for Central Avenue has negatively impacted Stanton, Bulong, Boulder, Lisle, Morrison, Victoria and Mooring in Redcliffe, as well as Durban, Keema and Leek in Belmont. Can the city provide a detailed background and rationale for opening Central Avenue, including the timing? Additionally, was this decision made by council, and if so, can the OCM date and minute or agenda item details please be provided?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. I think I'll need to take that on notice. Yep.
Thank you. At the question 2, at the July 2023 Ordinary Council meeting, the community asked, how does the city identify a rat run road? The response in the August agenda stated, the city has no specific criteria for determining a rat run road. It is a non-technical term and there are many variables involved. However, the concept of many variables is difficult to grasp. For example, Lisle Street sees a significant volume of non-local traffic heading towards Great Eastern Highway from Stanton, particularly between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. during peak airport drop-off times. This suggests the road is being used as a shortcut to avoid congestion based on the direction of traffic flow. Can the city please clarify the many variables involved in identifying a rat run road?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. Look, I'll take that on notice, but I just want to clarify a point that Lisle Street and the vehicles per day currently do not exceed the vehicle per day limit of that road of 3,000 vehicles a day. But I will take that on notice and respond.
Sorry, before you proceed, we need to extend question time, so if you just be patient. I need a mover and second to move by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Ryan. We need to vote. Please vote. Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Please go ahead.
Thank you. As publicly advertised, operations at Perth Airport's T3, T4 are set to expand before 2031. Traffic from T3, T4 primarily uses residential streets as a thoroughfare to and from the city, accounting for most traffic and nearly all out-of-hours traffic. In the absence of contrary information from Perth Airport, and mindful that the city has today advised that the consultant will base their analysis on information provided to date, can the city clarify that the traffic experts will model based on an increased traffic flow using Central and Stanton? And for transparency, can any correspondence from Perth Airport regarding the T3, T4 expansion plans or a summary of these plans be included in the traffic experts report to Council and the community?
Mr. CEO.
Unless the Director has some information, I'll take that on notice, Your Worship.
Last question, thank you. The side streets of Leek and Keema in Belmont, like Boulder, Morrison, Lisle and Mooring, are key routes for out-of-area traffic using Stanton as a shortcut to the city from T3, T4 Airport, avoiding traffic lights at Epsom Ave and Great Eastern. Common sense and our lived experience suggest this is true, and the community is hopeful the traffic experts will confirm what residents already know. In neighbouring LGAs, area-wide traffic studies are signed off by council as an agenda item. In Belmont, however, roadwork and traffic studies proceed through a budget line. We trust the city has advised the traffic experts to include leak and KEMA in their modelling and report to council. Why wasn't the scope of a $60,000 report funded by ratepayers brought before the council as an agenda item for consideration and approval before proceeding?
Mr CEO.
The short answer, Your Worship, is it's an operational matter, and we were implementing that as a result of the previous council resolution. To undertake a traffic study of this nature does come at a cost, and that study is currently underway, will be concluded hopefully later this year with a final report coming to council in December, and council will then be able to consider what traffic calming would be appropriate in the Redcliffe area.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Mr CEO.
Janet G.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question at the end, but I would like to ask the Mayor if he would give permission for me to make 2 short statements.
Question time. Please turn it into questions.
I'm trying to turn it into a question. You councillors never get any thanks for anything, and neither do the officers. So, trying to make this into a question, how can I say thank you to Mr. Downing and his team and the councillors for voting to change the rates to what we've got now? A lot of residents are very, very thankful for that. So how can I thank you all?
Mr. CEO can answer that.
Thank you. A simple way to do that would be to submit an email to Belmont, and that would be forwarded to the relevant staff, and we would certainly make sure that your thanks is passed on to them. Thank you. Okay, anybody tells me and I will tell them to do that, but I'm saying my thanks out here now. Thank you, guys. It is much appreciated by a lot of people. The other thing is, how can I thank you? The meeting before I went away, I brought an issue about accidents on the corner of the street I live, and I'd like to say, how can I thank Mr. Murphy and his team for proceeding to start doing something about that? Often it takes council a long time to get round to sorting things like that out, but I am so thankful that you guys are putting people's lives and people's money and accidents before time. So thank you very much. Thank you. My response is the same to the previous question, an email through to Belmont, and we'll certainly pass that on to the engineering team and the director. I will. My last one is a question. A question how council, because you guys are elected to serve the people, so therefore you can be on camera and your voice can be recorded. But we as citizens, I don't mind my voice being recorded, but I do object to being on camera. I'm not voted in by the residents. I don't want my face around everywhere. So I would like to say, when can you just do it so that you're hearing our voice, but you are not recording the people that are reading questions out?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. I think we've addressed this at a number of meetings previously, and while you're in this chamber and partaking in the meeting procedures and the meeting itself, then you will be captured under the live streaming because you're taking part in the meeting.
Thank you, Janet.
Okay, but thank you guys for the other 2 things.
Luigi Rosalind.
Good evening to the Mayor, the Council, all the people present. First, I'm going back to the question I asked a few weeks ago on the last 2 council meetings, where the matter regarding watch being choose what book are choose for the library, and the method they are chosen by who and what. I apologize, my accent is very difficult, and I listened to the audio of the last meeting, and I realized my voice was terrible and difficult to myself understand what I say. Emotion carries some problem. So I try to be calm and try to explain. The response from the CEO was being all include everybody, etc., and certainly it's a good response like the Prime Minister. The problem is this. I was asking the Council to deal with the matter, to make decision what books are available for children, and on the library, and also how many books are being borrowed or that type of, to know the statistic. I know you have another inquiry online and regarding the hubs, a library, asking people questions about, but I look on the website, 2023, you have one too. And the question is, are you releasing that to the public, the result, or is it a secret?
Director of Development Communities, you've got the library. Is that going to be released to the public?
I'll take that question on notice, Mr. Mayor.
Next question, please.
Question 2 is still regarding the book. As I've been written by you, Mayor, to me on email at the council bureaucrat, and like the CEO confirming that. Being say that regarding the book, it's an operational matter. I contesting that because by all the experience happen or fact happening in Australia, all the councillor and mayor make decision interstate in regarding all the issue. It was very well known on broadcast, even on the ABC national TV. And the matter is got the council first vote to take out the book, the LGBT, etc. They comply, and the question is, why you say this in operational matter is not council have nothing to do about. It's a moral responsibility of the people representing us to make decisions like this, what to be put to children.
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Worship. Despite what Mr. Roslin says, it is an operational matter, but again, there is a process at Ruth Faulkner Library where people can request for the content to be reconsidered. The library, as I mentioned previously, is a registered public library under the Library Board of WA Act 1951, and we are guided by the State Library's collection principles. Thank you, Your Worship.
Your next question, if you have one.
Okay, the question I've been asked before, but another present here, right by, and this is a financial one. And the council spent $359,906 for a chiller replacement. My understanding is for this building. Is correct?
Director of Corporate and Governance, are you able to answer that? Director of Infrastructure, which one?
No, I'm happy to take it on notice because I can't understand what the question is.
Director of Infrastructure Services?
Through you, Mayor Rossi, yes, the chiller replacement was for this building.
Next question, please. The last
A question regarding this matter too, and the process to give to the company to install this chiller replacement of water, air conditioner, whatever it is, have been go for tender, or it's just been done by some bureaucrat to give the consent? Was a tender done or not? As it's a very high amount of money.
Mr. CEO?
Yes, thank you, Worship. We did go to tender. We have a procurement process and procurement policies here which guide all of our purchasing requirements. The item would have gone to tender. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Back to Mr Harris. You said you had a follow-up question.
Yes, just the one final question. On pedestrian projects, there have been projects to address clear safety issues that have not been done for 8+ years and multiple consecutive plans, like walking man lights and basic pedestrian phases on the closest traffic intersection to this building at Abernethy and Wright. The plans aren't the problem, our priorities are. We're spending hundreds of thousands on hanging baskets in Faulkner Park and ignoring the people who cross or would cross Abernethy Road to get to that park. To get those jobs done in reasonable time, can the implementation of these integrated transport plans please be included by Council as a KPI for the Chief Executive Officer?
Director of Infrastructure Services, I think it falls under you.
Just in relation, through you, Mayor Rossi, in relation to the Wright Street crossing, that is being implemented this year. The delay with that project is with the Western Power lighting upgrade. The other matter I defer to the CEO.
It was Abernethy Road you mentioned. Mr CEO?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Look, it goes without saying, any changes to traffic lights, whether that be timed crossings and the like, is, while something that we could advocate on, it does come down to main roads and the main roads' responsibility to determine whether they want to implement that. With regard to your comment about adding an additional KPI into my performance indicators, there's a confidential matter on that item tonight, which I'm sure Council would have heard, which they assess my performance and review and select my KPIs. And if they wish to include that, that's something they may consider tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Being no more questions, I close public question time at 7:22 p.m. Are there any matrix for the agenda briefing forum held the 20th of August? Are there any questions on the matrix? If there's none, can I have a move and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Davis. Voting is now open. Please use the buttons on your microphone screen. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Ordinary Council meeting held the 23rd of July. Are there any questions on the minutes? Councillor Sakula, is your hand up? No? Okay, we have a move and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Sakula, seconded by Councillor Gujitsky. Voting is now open. Please use the screens. Carried unanimously. Questions by members of which due notice has been given? There are none. Questions by members, response to questions taken on notice? There are none. Questions by members without notice. Are there any questions by members? There are none. New business of an urgent nature. Is there any new business of an urgent nature? There's none. Business adjourned from the previous meeting. There is none. Reports of committee. The Executive Committee held on the 22nd of July. Are there any questions on these minutes? May I have a move and a seconder that the minutes of this Executive Committee meeting held on the 22nd of July be received and noted. Moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Sessions. Voting is now open. Please use the buttons on your microphone screen. Carried unanimously. 11.2, Standing Committee, Order and Risk, held on the 29th of July. Are there any questions on the minutes? May I have a move and a seconder that the minutes of the Standing Committee, Order and Risk meeting held on the 29th of July be received and noted. Moved by Councillor Gujitsky, seconded by Councillor Sakula. Voting is now open. Please use the buttons on your microphone screen. It's carried unanimously. Move to 12. Reports of administration. Withdrawn items. I'll go through them. 12.1. Councillor Sessions. 12.2, Councillor Sakula. 12.3, Club Night Lights Program. 12.4, Internal Audit Report. 12.5, Opportunity Award nominations. Accounts for payments. And monthly financial report for July. May I have a move and a second to adopt the balance of the reports en bloc with the exceptions of items 12.1 and 12.2. Moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Sessions. Voting is now open. Please use the buttons on your microphone screen. Carry unanimously. For those people present in the gallery, please note that those items that have not been withdrawn have now been adopted by Council. You're welcome to stay and observe the remainder of tonight's proceedings, or you may wish to leave when convenient. As outlined previously, please do not rely on any Council decision until formal notification has been received in writing. Thank you. We move to 12.1, Development Application. Councillor
Thank you, Your Worship. I have already declared a disclosure of interest at the start of the meeting for indirect financial under section 5.61 and also impartiality under the REG's 19AA and also 2.2 of the Code of Conduct. Given the declaration of interest that I've made, I'd like to recuse myself of any part in the council meeting at this point relevant to this matter, and I ask if I have a consent to leave the chamber.
Yes, you've put that declaration in. Yes, you can. Thank you very much. Could an officer close the door, please? Thank you. So we have moved by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Davis. Councillor Sessions, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Rossi. I asked several questions about this item last week and received very thorough responses, and therefore I'm happy to move this as per officer recommendation.
Thank you. The seconder wish to speak?
I just think it's great for the local community. I'm happy to approve, not approve it, I'm happy to accept this item in front of me. Yep, thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak for or against? If not, I'll speak very briefly. This building provides a convenient and nearby place for priests to live, which is very important as priests need to be readily available for church services, meetings, and the key here is pastoral care. Priests can be available to parishioners for support and emergencies. I am a bit surprised by the building palette, which doesn't seem to connect with the church next door, but obviously they want to fit in with the streetscape, which is also very important. But I imagine future signage will be also invaluable for them. I also support this motion. Back to the mover.
Nothing more to add, Mayor Rossi.
Thank you very much. Voting is now open. Carry unanimously. Thank you very much. Someone calling Councillor Sakula? Thank you. We seem not to be able to find the councillor. He may be in the toilet, I guess. We'll just send the C out looking for him. Otherwise, we might take a 5-minute break. We'll just wait. Here he is. I would like to advise, in accordance with section 5.232E of the Local Government Act 1995, if there's any questions on the confidential attachment for item 12.2, draft Golden Gateway local structure plan, then council will need to go behind closed doors. Are there any questions on item 12.2? On the confidential attachment? No? Then we'll progress to Councillor Sakula, who's moved 12.2. Need a seconder? Councillor Kulczycki, thank you. Councillor Sakula.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to speak on this motion and to move that we support the motion based on the fact that this is a document that will go out to consultation to the residents and the ratepayers. And this is a significant piece of information that needs to go out to individuals to enable them to give thought to what is there. It's important for them to give a consideration to the different opportunities that are available on this iconic site. We are very blessed within our city because this is the last piece of iconic land, and any type of development in this space needs to be done in a very careful and a measured way. So therefore, feedback from the residents is really, really important. During the past 5 years, I can honestly say the feedback that I've received from the residents in that local area has been around height, and there has been concerns around height, and so therefore this is an opportunity for individuals to voice their views about height and any other aspect about the Golden Gateway area. I would strongly encourage, once the consultation process has been established by the city, that all residents are engaged in the process, that they are involved in voicing their ideas, their concerns and any issues that they may have, because we as a council have an opportunity to actually reflect those needs. And as I say, this is a very important piece of land. It is the gateway to our city, and that gateway will speak volumes according to the type of look and feel in that space. The other important thing that needs to be put into note here is that this is the last opportunity that residents and the ratepayers have to actually give their input into this piece of land. So this is a significant time, and your voice will speak volumes with a respect to this piece of land. Thank you.
The seconder, please, Councillor Kulczycki.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A thorough and evidence-based analysis has been completed by the City's Planning Department into the development of the draft local structure plan. As been highlighted by the Planning Department, the existing land falling under this precinct has no existing height controls. The proposed plan provides direction and certainty for both developers and nearby residents. Belmont deserves higher quality development. I disagree with the presentation made by the representative from Cube during their deputation made at the ABF regarding the coupling of environmental incentives with building controls and the viability of projects. A higher quality product with sustainable features will attract discerning buyers seeking such accommodation. for which there is a growing market. It is nonsense that higher quality developments cannot be financially viable, as asserted last week. We cannot accept second-rate development to occur in Belmont anymore. By developing precincts with higher densities in suitable and well-researched locations, this will help preserve the other areas of Belmont. We, as a city, wish to preserve with lower densities and less bulky build forms, offering choice in the housing types for all in our community.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak for or against? If nobody, I'll speak very briefly to say this is about the Golden Triangle, the Golden Gateway area. It's got nothing to do with the trust land. The trust land is not touched or impacted in any way. In fact, the overlooking of these potential what could go on the Golden Triangle will actually protect it and look over it and provide people to actually go and enjoy the trust land. It's 200 metres away from the closest point of Ascot waters, so while there may be some impact, there is limited impact, and there is never been a greater need for housing in WA in Australia. Never been a greater need. We need to be aware of what's happening out there. You only have to watch the news. There's people sleeping in cars. It's quite a serious time in Australia. But, as I agree with Councillor Kulczycki totally, it has to be good quality, and we should expect the very best, because this is roughly a green site, because it's got mixed use now. Eventually that'll all be redeveloped in time coming. So I will support this to go out to the public and then get the public's impact and their input, and we'll see what they say as we make a final decision on this. Back to the mover.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess the key takeaway from all of this is to everyone involved, to everyone that lives close by or within the city, get involved, get engaged, voice your opinion, voice your views. You have one opportunity left to really define this piece of land. It's a piece of land that is iconic, as I've said. It's a gateway to our city. The question has often been raised, well, have we satisfied our infill? In my opinion, yes, we have. Does the government keep trying to change the goalposts in this space? Yes, they do. There's plenty of other spots if you want to create more infill up and down the highway. But with respect to this wonderful piece of land, we need to preserve it. By actually preserving it, I mean to develop it in a very measured and a careful way. And this is a great opportunity to really engage everybody and listen to those voices, take on board those voices and reflect those voices in the actual decision making that we actually do in this space. Thank you, Your Worship.
We'll now vote. Voting is now open. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Reports by the Chief Executive Officer. Requests for leave of absence. There is none. Notice of motion. There are none. 14. Matters which meeting may be closed. I will now close the meeting in accordance with section 5.232A and H of the Local Government Act 1985. May I have a move and a second to go behind closed doors. Moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Sessions. We'll just vote. Voting is now open. Carried unanimously. Would the IT officer please pause the live stream? And could the I invite the public back into the meeting. Agenda item 14.1, Code of Conduct matter. Oh, let's wait for them. Agenda item 14.1, Code of Conduct matter, that council accepts the officer recommendation in relation to this item. Moved Councillor Davis, seconded Councillor Marx. Carried unanimously. Agenda item 14.2, staff matter, Chief Executive Officer, Annual Performance Appraisal 2023-2024. That council accepts the officer recommendation in relation to this item. Moved by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Davis. Carried unanimously. We now move to closure. There being no further business to conduct, I thank all those in attendance and close the meeting at 8:14 p.m. Thank you everyone for coming. Safe trip home.